Welcome to another Apollo Papyrus podcast episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest is from Indiana and is the author of the thriller novel Crossroads, which is set in that state. In addition to her work as an author, she has taught at multiple colleges and universities and has written numerous academic articles. Her name is Rhonda Parker Taylor, and my interview with Rhonda will follow the teleportation sound. Rhonda Parker Taylor, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Well, thank you. I am so glad to be here. I can't wait till we get into our deep dive into our discussion.
I'll start with a question I ask nearly all of my guests, and that is to feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
I would be glad to. My name is Rhonda Parker Taylor. I'm an author, or an academic researcher, and an entrepreneur. My entrepreneur specialty is coaching individuals that are going through life changes. It could be academic life changes, or it can be professional, like maybe they need a strategic plan, but it's mostly writing and personal counseling.
Your suspense novel is called Crossroads. Without spoiling too much of Crossroads, what is your book about?
I would be glad to tell you about Crossroads. Crossroads is a piece of me. It's a passion that I found in doing fiction writing. It's based out of Indianapolis. It's a 1982 suspense thriller. It's more on the genre of a clue-based Agatha Christie or a Grisham. It has the courtroom drama. Some of the sites that are true sites, even though it's a fiction novel, are the City County building in Indianapolis, the Monument Circle, some of the parks, and the dead bodies dropped on the railroad tracks. So when you see the cover of it, you'll see the railroad tracks, because we all hit a crossroads at some point in our life. And depending on what decision we make, depends on just what path we end up on. And what ends up happening in Crossroads is the main character, through going and being a juror in the jury for jury duty, finds out her life just isn't what she thought it would be. It's endorsed by Merrill Hemingway, the academic, or not academic, I apologize, the Academy Award winning actress and granddaughter of Ernest Hemingway.
Now, the main character in Crossroads is Paris Pennington. Did you base the main character in Crossroads on one or more real-life people?
Well, I would say that the main character is based out of the culture of the Midwest. She bought into the mentality that you are what you work, and her worth and her identity is based on that. So I would say it's every person that I know that strives for excellence, but at the same time, may question whether there's a price with that excellence. Anybody that knows a workaholic, if you throw something new in their path, they definitely will try to accomplish it. But at the same time, it completely throws them off the rails.
Did your writing process for Crossroads involve a lot of outlining, or did you write the book with little or no outlining beforehand?
Well, I would have liked to say that I outlined, but I didn't. I kind of had a story in mind of what I wanted people to leave feeling like. And it did shift, much like a hurricane would. I'd start getting into a writing spurt, and I was like, oh, this character is really kind of taking over. Oh, this character is ending up more of a subplot. And I knew that there were other books to come. So I would like to, I think I'm more character driven. So each character, I did what they call in the medical community a soap note, where I know their medical history, their family's history, everything they've gone through traumatic and drama wise, and done a DSM-5 diagnosis and assessment on them, so that I know how they're going to behave once they get in the room. But as far as the actual story being outlined, no, it was not outlined.
How long did it take you to write Crossroads, and what are the easiest and hardest parts about writing a suspense novel for you?
For me, it took me a year to write it. And I really am self-disciplined to anybody that wants to write their own first novel. I would say 1 page a day and it's done in a year. Most novels are around 300 pages, right? So the hardest part for me in writing was not the sitting down and writing or researching and finding out more about a specific topic. That was the easy part for me because I liked that part. I liked going and discovering new ways of understanding. Like, for instance, the hardest one probably would have been the scene that was very insignificant to the story, but it was when a young boy called in that he'd seen the body of a murdered girl. And I developed him to have a stutter, but I wasn't really sure how to get that emotion. Once you've seen something like that, how does that call go with that 911 call operator? So I literally found an app that you could sit and listen to 911 calls. And to get that essence of that panic and tension, I think was the hardest thing for me to do.
Is Crossroads self-published, traditionally published, or hybrid published?
It's hybrid. I have a wonderful publisher, Meinster Media, owned by J.J. Hibbert, and he creates a great way of teaching the authors not only how to pull the publishing part of it together, but how to market it, which is the hardest thing in publishing, especially if someone wants to do a self-published. Anybody that's out there that's self-published, nothing wrong with that. For me, it became a question of, do I have time, to figure out the barcode, figure out how to get it on Amazon, figure out that if you are self-published, you're not going to get in a bookstore unless you've created accounts and got it approved through Ingram Sparks or Ingram, the parent companies. So all of those tricks and traits, because I'm not from the publishing industry, are important to know. So, and then I had a traditional publisher that had agreed to publish it, and they backed out at the last minute, and it had taken us 2 years to get to the agreement. And so I'm like, okay, I'm getting old. Do I have time to do that process all over again? So I went with the hybrid matrix, and I highly recommend Meinster. They do a great job with their authors, and they have good editors, and they give you good concrete advice about your book.
Do you have more books in the works? And if so, what are some book writing projects you're working on? Well, not right this second, but working on now.
Okay, so Crossroads, like I said, has a backstory of life balance. And when I say life balance, I'm not just talking about career life balance. I'm talking about all 13 dimensions of our psyche and our mental health, physical health, emotional, spiritual, etc. And so I have a workbook that's coming out around Christmas that takes you through that process, that uses the characters in Crossroads as a case study. If you identified with them, you can go through and redefine and realign your own life. And then I have each character in Crossroads has their own fiction novel. And then there's a self-help for each one. So then the second fiction novel presently is called Chosen, but that's just the working title. It's about a young girl that's in Crossroads that she keeps on making the same choices and ends up being a victim. And so then the self-help book will be how to not be a victim in your life.
You've taught at the University of Indianapolis, National College, Oakland City University, and Vincennes University, among other higher education institutions. What were some subjects you taught as a college professor and instructor?
My background is in business. I have a doctorate in business. So everything that I taught was in the business aspect, HR, introductory to business, economics, nothing in the finance area. Finance is not one of my strengths. I do finance analysis, but not my strongest one to explain and develop other students, but mainly in a lot of leadership and emotional intelligence. I have a large portfolio in the leadership area. It's a passion of mine to teach people to be better leaders.
You mentioned at the near the beginning of the interview that you're an academic researcher. Have you written academic articles? And if so, what are some subjects you've written academic articles about?
The most known one would be on emotional intelligence and the multinational leader. It was presented at the UN Global Compact Committee at Case Western. It's been several years ago, but we studied domestic CEOs and vice presidents and multinational leaders, ones that led organizations that were in more than one country. And in the findings of that study, we found that, of course, what the hypothesis was is the multinational leader would have higher emotional intelligence, which was what we did prove. However, what was interesting about the study was that the domestic leader, on two of the major characteristics of emotional intelligence, the domestic leader had the higher scores, and that was self-impression of themselves and narcissism, which impacts your self-regulation and your empathy. In doing that, you can kind of put that as a big fish in a small pond syndrome. But the problem with that for domestic leaders is it will make it very difficult for them to lead an organization successfully if they're not regulating self. How can you lead people if at every golf outing you're at a golf outing, and every stressful event you're running and hiding and behind your desk? So it allowed us to come up with some plans to help domestic leaders become better communicators and better conflict resolutionists.
You own a business. It's called Intelligent Solutions, and what services does it provide?
Okay, so Intelligent Solutions came about. I think understanding the story will help you understand the makeup of it. As I was a campus director for a community college, national college in Indianapolis, and at the time, my son was a bouncer at a bar, or my adopted son, and someone came in and shot and killed him. So it was very difficult for me to handle the emotions of dealing with that same population of individuals, people the same age as my son. And so I decided to step away from the academic part of teaching and administration and focus on a need that I saw in businesses and individuals. During this period, there was more technology being available. And a lot of people didn't know how to navigate their career paths any longer because either they had skills that were outdated or they didn't even know how to do their resumes anymore because resumes were now instead of being mailed, they were being uploaded through, an Indeed or a Career Builder or one of these platforms. And so I started by doing individual counseling and career assessments to help people navigate change. And then what I found in that is there was even a larger opportunity to help people that needed to navigate change in their daily lives or in their businesses. So it could be a leader that needs someone to shadow them and then provide a plan for them to improve their skills in leadership. Or it can be a business plan, or it could be a career plan. or an academic plan, because in some cases it's people trying to pass their licenses, for instance, for social worker, nursing, or whatever, their new path is, and they don't even have the resources. They don't know how to gather these resources that are now available to help them be successful. It's finding the story of their success.
My last question is about some countries you've traveled to. What are some countries outside of the United States that you've enjoyed traveling to?
Oh, I think traveling is one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself. And even traveling by yourself, you'll learn a lot. You don't always have to have somebody else. I've been to Canada, Mexico, Greece, Italy, England, Scotland, Belgium. And the funny thing about Belgium is it wasn't really that I wanted to go to Belgium. People say, why did you go to Belgium? I wanted all the trams go through Belgium, and you can get to Paris in a couple of hours, Amsterdam. But I never left Belgium, because every day I'd get up and think I'm going to go this direction. And let's say I jumped off the train in Bruges, and there was something there that was so unique and different that I had to take the opportunity. So for me, traveling is the ability to explore yourself and other cultures and learn about yourself. You might learn about a bias that you have, or you might learn about a food that you liked, or you might learn that, the shroud of Jesus Christ is in Belgium in one of the cathedrals, and you can pray over it. Who wouldn't want to do that? It doesn't matter what religion you are. You find some kind of spiritual connection with everything. When I was in Italy, the island of the gods, and seeing the old pagan gods laying throughout the fields, and you realize that all of us have a history, and understanding that history and seeing that, humans, although they may have been different in different eras, they're still the same, and you need to learn from their mistakes and grow from their growth.
Rhonda, thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast. You were an awesome guest.
Thank you, and I really appreciate you having there. And all you people out there listening, I hope you have a blessed day. And remember to share, like, and follow the Apollo Show, because you can't get any better than this.
It was amazing to interview Rhonda, and I hope y'all read Crossroads. I'll include a link to purchase Crossroads on Amazon in the text description of this episode. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to find your writing and reading purpose. Bye for now. Copyright 2024, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.